Greetings, fam, and welcome to another edition of those powerful platforms for truth, bar none, anywhere on God's green earth. This is your platform for education, elevation, and edification. This is the Red Pill Diaries, and I'm your host, your brother, and your friend, Rashid. And I'd like to take the time out to thank each and every one of you who supports the channel, whether you are a patron or a channel member. Thank you so much, whether you are a subscriber or not. If you view it, if you help spread the word, I want to take the time out right now to thank you, because you didn't have to give me your time. You didn't have to subscribe. You didn't have to become a member of our Twitter page, our Rumble page, our Odyssey page, our Locals page, our both of our YouTube pages, and our Twitch page. You didn't have to do that, but you did it. And for that, I'm sincerely thankful. Now, let's jump in it. So we just found out earlier today that Joe Biden says that he will stand down in the election coming up, but he will remain the president. And I've been hearing a lot of pundits and a lot of prognosticators and alternative and mainstream media saying that it was Obama who pushed Joe Biden out. And their reasoning for this, some of it is sound. I got to give it to them. Some of it is sound. But I want to just put something on your mind. Obama is a puppet. Let's get that right. A lot of the people who are saying that Obama pushed Biden out are some of the same people who acknowledged when Obama took office that he was a puppet of the deep state. So if he is a puppet, do you blame the puppet for dancing to the tune of the puppeteer? Or do you blame the puppeteer for making the puppet dance the way the puppet dances? Huh? Obama he's a shield for Western hegemony and supremacy. And he is not the power behind the scene. He is the face of the power behind the scene. You understand? So when we lose focus of that fact, we blame and listen, anybody who knows my show know that I think Obama was one of the worst people and worst presidents for Black America. I'm just here to tell you. I look at his record, I look at his rhetoric, and I look at what he accomplished. And I can tell you from a personal standpoint, he was all smoke and mirrors to not just America, but specifically Black America. And he used certain things to keep them mesmerized and hypnotized for the powers that be. Because remember, George Bush didn't really go into Africa the way the powers that be wanted him to go in. They had to get a kinder, gentler, more acceptable face to do that. Hence, you had a senator who was a community person who went from being that to a senator of one terms. He didn't even finish out his Senate obligations and then became a two-time U.S. president. That is unheard of. So he had to have some power and some money backing, because he didn't have money. And remember that his grandparents and his mother and his father were all assets of the CIA. That lends to show me that more than him having say-so of things, he is just the voicing what the powers who are controlling him are saying. You understand? And so they used Obama to go into Africa, because if Africa had been bombed and destroyed, if Libya had been attacked and destroyed under, let's say, a white president, the Black activists, the white activists, and everybody else would have been up in arms talking about racism and colonialism. But because it was done under Obama's watch, those people stood silently by and watched the US, the UK, France, Germany, and NATO bomb Libya under trumped-up charges back to the Stone Age. Had it been a white person, they would have been up in arms. So the powers that be had to put a face on it that would make the recolonization of Africa more acceptable. Just like they had to put that face on the same man who is responsible for poisoning some of the leaders in Latin America. I remember Christina Kirchner, I believe her name is, who was the former president of and former vice president of Argentina, right? And her husband was the president too. So she said that under Obama, she said the United States were poisoning Latin American leaders, giving them cancer. And once Hugo Chavez, who had been reported to be in excellent health, he was right. He had no signs of cancer whatsoever, no signs of his illness. But after he met with Obama, after he gave that speech on stage at the UN, and after he talked about America being the devil and how it smelled like brimstone up there after the U.S. delegation left, and the whole world started laughing, and all of the delegates in there were laughing. Hugo Chavez mysteriously, after shaking Obama's hand, was hit with cancer. And I'm talking about, and it rapidly increased. So all I'm saying is you can go Google this. I'm not making this stuff up. Okay? When I speak to you, I speak from an educated perspective. All right? So Obama is a face and a voice of the elite. They had to have a black face in order to make it more palatable in the age of how they're talking about inclusion, in the age of inclusion. So anything that Obama is doing, he's doing at the behest of powers behind him. You understand? So when you look at that, and when you now from this point on, when you hear pundits talk about Obama running the Democratic Party and Obama doing X, Y, and Z, remember, the puppet has no power to walk on his own. The puppet has no power to move on his own. It needs the puppeteer to pull the strings. And so the deep state, or that security state, is pulling the strings on Obama, making the puppet move and speak and act. That is very important as we look at what is going on. All right? And so in a time of America's downfall, Kamala Harris being accepted as the candidate, here it is, putting a gentler face on colonialism, putting a gentler face on exceptionalism and imperialism. Why? Because she's a female. She would become the first female president. She would become the first partially black president. She would become the first partially Indian president in the United States. Right? America is trying to have India gravitate out of Russia's orbit into America's orbit to try to confront China and deprive Russia of the needed cash for its defense industry, because India is the largest purchaser of Russian army, of weaponry and stuff. Right? So all of this is strategic. None of this is incoherent. None of it. And also, it is to please the anti-Trumpists, okay? A black woman can be the president, right? And an Indian woman can be a president. So now, did you see how the people, when Kamala Harris was declared the vice president, did you see how the Indian population rejoiced? Did you see how the black population rejoiced? Right? All of this is strategic. Because right now, America is in the worst predicament that she has ever found herself in. An economy that is in total and utter decline and decay. A military that is in utter and total decline and decay and is bankrupt. A financial system that is in utter decline and utter decay and is fiscally irresponsible and bankrupt. And a cultural system that is spinning out of control, because you have the people at the top that are trying to force others into subjugation to their thoughts, their whims, and what they believe should be the norm. Everything is coming apart at the seams. So they need a kinder, gentler face of imperialism. Do you understand? That's what we're watching. A kinder, gentler face of imperialism. And I know people haven't talked on this perspective. See, I'm not afraid to touch color. I'm not afraid to touch culture. I'm not afraid to touch religion. I'm not afraid of any of that. Because if I speak and I'm wrong, I'm willing to come before you and apologize for being wrong. But I have my ducks in a row. And what I'm telling you is the absolute facts. And I dare any man, woman, child, goat, rat, or alien to dispute it. That's on the real. So now, we're looking at an empire, the U.S. British Empire, because that's what it is, in total and utter decline. And what I told you before is they continue to throw stuff on the wall to see if anything will stick, to see if anything would match, to see if anything would help them in the day of their downfall. They don't want to try anything like justice. They don't want to try anything like sincerely apologizing and then making amends for troubling nations and peoples around the world to help at least slow down, if not stop the fall. They don't want to admit to wrongdoings. They only know how to escalate, how to put their foot on the gas and accelerate, even as people are saying, hey, leaders of the U.S., there's a bridge out over there. And they're ignoring all of the signs, all of the stop signs, all of the people on the side of the road, and they're heading at breakneck speed towards the bridge that is out. That's what we're watching in real time. That's what we're seeing. So we see all of this going on, and in the backdrop, there's an economic crisis the likes of which you've never heard of. America being the richest and the most powerful nation in the annals of the last 6,000 years of history is now under the financial gun. And it is firing hypersonic missiles armed with nuclear bombs on them at America's economic infrastructure, America's economic institutions. We see that. And it is flattening them all and leading people to rebel against the leaders, to rebel against the system, to rebel against the unjust, irrational, and insane policies. Matter of fact, let's go to a clip real quick while we're talking on this, just to discuss a little bit about the financial situation that America now finds herself in. Because it is very important that you understand that she's under the gun. And so is Britain. I was looking at Britain, and there's an article talking about how businesses are filing bankruptcy at an unheard of rate in the UK. Remember I told you that these two nations, the US and the UK, are the daughters of Babylon? They were the richest, the most powerful, the most influential nations, just like Babylon was, right? And the book says, well, come now and sit down in the dust. There is no throne for thee anymore. Thou shalt no more be called tender or delicate, right? We're looking at the delicate part being ripped off of them. That facade of being about human rights, that facade of being about prosperity and equality and justice being ripped off. And the whole world is seeing that there's no throne for her anymore. And this is causing an upheaval in the political elite as the world swiftly and quickly changes from the Western order to the Eastern world order. I want you to listen to this right here about the situation and ponder over what I just told you about the UK, because remember, I told you these two mirror each other back. Okay? So look at this.
During my first term in Congress, I served on the Budget Committee and the Small Business Committee. We told Joe Biden that his so-called American Rescue Plan was going to cause inflation. The Biden-Harris administration told us not to worry, but I knew better. I have nearly 2 decades of experience as a financial professional, and the evidence is in. Go to any grocery store, buy eggs, buy beef, buy milk. Even housing prices have skyrocketed. All Americans deserve a shot at the American dream. But under Joe Biden's debilitating economic policies, far many Americans, far too many, for far too many of them, that dream has slipped away?
There are multiple reasons. I think the first is probably the failed promises of the Biden regime, right? When Joe Biden came to office, he promised this massive infrastructure bill where the American government would invest billions upon billions of dollars into improving infrastructure around America, which is just basically crumbling. You know, for small to medium-sized businesses, the most important thing is really supply chains and logistics, being able to ship their goods around the United States and the world as a whole. That's been completely and utterly pulled back. Instead, the Biden regime decided that they would give that money to Ukraine. Not only by doing that did they cause huge problems in the United States internally, but they also destabilized the world's food supply. You know, between Ukraine and Russia, these are two of the largest nations providing food security to the world. On top of that, they disrupted the oil and gas flows from Russia, which again are supplying the entire world, including the United States itself. And by doing that, essentially, they caused a massive inflation, not just in their own country, but across the world, which has affected every single household within the US and the world itself. And I think a new Trump presidency has to do one thing first. It has to end the conflict in Ukraine. This can't keep going on because it's just hurting everyone now. It's not hurting Russia. We live here. We can attest to that fact. It's hurting the rest of the world, and America particularly itself, just due to the amount of money, you know, that is given by US taxpayers to the Zelensky regime every single month, it seems. So that has to end. And the second thing, I think he's just got to pull back. He's got to try and look at how to improve the situation for small to medium-sized businesses, which are the breadbasket of the United States. They always have been. Small and medium-sized businesses prop up an economy. They increase GDP. They increase people's livelihoods and well-beings. They create this thing that Americans call the American dream. So he's got to go in and he's got to reinforce those businesses and help them survive, essentially, be it through intervening with state aid, very much like what happened during the COVID period, or finding a way in order to deregulate and cut the red tape, which is forcing them to go under.
The U.S. Treasury Secretary, Chris, fears the dollar is set to lose its dominance as more nations particularly resort to cryptocurrencies amid sanctions, trying to find a way around all that. What does that say, though, about Washington's punishment policy?
Biden set up this thing called the Crypto Task Force, where he's essentially been going around and picking off different people that don't agree with his policy from the crypto space. I think it's very telling, Yunan, that President Trump will be speaking at the largest crypto conference in the world, which is held in the US, called the Bitcoin Conference, very soon. So we can see there really is these kind of battle lines that are being drawn between the Trump side, which is pro-free market, pro people using whichever currency they want to pay for goods, as they should, as is a constitutional right in the US, to be able to have the freedom to choose, as opposed to the Biden regime that essentially wants to shut down any kind of innovation or any kind of use of cryptocurrencies to bust essentially these crazy sanctions that I don't think anyone in the world believes are effective or anyone in the world actually cares about breaking anymore.
So now we're looking at this, and this part here is the part where we end the stream on YouTube and Rumble and Odyssey and Locals. If you want to check out the rest of the show, please join us over on Patreon. We'll continue to go. I want to thank each and every one of you for your time, okay? So now we're about to dig back in this. For everybody that we're going off, know that everything is little. Hey, mama, your baby boy loves you more than life. We're out of here.